All right, hey everybody. This has been giving me so much trouble that I figured I'd make my own video to help those of you who might be running into problems. This is the Engenius Business Solutions Long-Range Wireless Outdoor CPE Kit. And there aren't a lot of good videos out there for how to set it up. The kit comes with two of these, and one's a primary and one's a secondary. So the other one I've got set up on the other side of the property, so there's nothing left in the box really in there. But the quick start manual really isn't much of a help. So let me see if I can help you out here with this. So the first thing you do is look on the back of your units, and one of them is going to say, I gotta put on my glasses or I can't see it. One of them is going to say IP address of 192.168.1.1, and that's the primary, because they come in a kit of two where one's a primary and one's a secondary. So see right above my thumb where that IP address is, and note that it also has a MAC address, a 5 gigahertz MAC address up there that you're going to need to record. So write down that 5 gigahertz MAC address. This one here, which is 88DC968570F5 on this particular unit. Yours will be different. And look at the IP address. And then do yourself a favor and label the primary, so you don't have to go through any confusion right there. And then note that these indicator lights here are going to be your friend telling you if things are working right. So once you have identified that, then plug in an Ethernet cable. Let me open this up for us here. Excuse the bad camera work, and I'm doing this with one hand. So let's see if I can get this one. Okay. So there's two ports in here. One is the main LAN, which is a power over Ethernet, and then there's the secondary. You're not going to use the secondary. You might have to use the reset button with a paper clip. That's something I had to do when I updated the firmware on this one. But since I've already updated the firmware, I'm not going to do a reset on this. Or if you found that you didn't know what the IP address is and you had to start from scratch, that's the reset button that you'd put a paper clip in, and then the factory default would be this IP address of 192.168.1.1. Okay, so anyway, you put in your main LAN, and the main LAN, this is the power injector that comes with this model. It's different than the earlier models. So it plugs into the wall, and it has a power over Ethernet, PoE, and it has a LAN. So you're going to put the PoE, that's what's going to go into the main LAN. All right, and then you want to plug the unit in. So let me do that. So once you've plugged it in, you're going to see a really faint LED showing power, and it's really faint. It's not bright for some reason, but if it wasn't plugged in, then it would be completely black. I can show you by pulling this out, then plugging it, and you can see there's nothing there. So it is faint, but it is there. All right, so now, as you can see, there's that green light, which is fairly faint. Can't really see it. All right, I also, I said secondary, this is supposed to be the primary, and it doesn't matter. So the power injector, I labeled them as they came out the box, and I used the wrong one here, but it doesn't matter which power injector you use. So this one says secondary, and it belongs to the secondary, but I'm using it for the primary. No problem, that's just, power injector is just a power injector. Okay, once you have that, in order to configure your device, you're gonna plug the LAN cable that's going to go to your computer to do the programming into LAN. So that goes into LAN, and then the other end of that cable goes into your laptop. So from there, go into your laptop here. Now, you open up your laptop, and so go to a browser and type in that IP address, which was, and actually, hold on. So if everything's getting power, then you're going to see this power light go on, and then I was already using it, so that's why it says link quality, because it's linked to my secondary, and I'm going to just change some things around. But you know you have power, and when that light turns green for the LAN, don't worry about the Wi-Fi LAN, the wide area network, the WAN, but the LAN, when that's green, all you'll see is just this yellow and this green. Don't worry about that red thing. That means that the unit is ready to be programmed. And so then you want to go and type into your browser that 192.168.1.1 and you'll find that nothing will happen. And the reason nothing's happening is because you've got to go into your Ethernet, and the way that you get there, in case it wasn't up there, so go to your network and settings, okay, and then go to your Ethernet, and then double click on that. And no, actually don't do that. Let's try this again. Go to your network and internet settings and go to your Ethernet and then change adapter options. Then you see this window come up, and then click on Internet and Ethernet, and if it has an X it means it's not connected. So then this window opens, and go to Properties and scroll down until you see the, it's hard for my, there it is, till you see Internet Protocol version 4 TCP IPv4. Double click on that and it'll say obtain IP address automatically, which is what you normally want, but for setting up your Engenius, you need to assign it an IP address temporarily. So do 192.168.1. and then anything from 10 to 20. So the tutorial I used 15. So I'm going to put 15 in. And then the subnet mask should populate itself with 255.255.0. All right, that's what you have to put in to the Internet Protocol version 4 TCP/IPv4 properties, and then say OK. Once that is happening and you make sure that that is checked over there, you can say OK to that. And then when you go back and look here, nothing. Let's see if this works now. There it goes. So that's the trick to being able to get in with the IP address that was assigned, that was on the unit down there, right? So now they're talking to one another, and the default username is admin with the password admin for logging in. There we go. All right, so this is like watching paint dry, but there we have it. Link status is down, that's fine. Right now, we're going to look at the wireless part of this. Now, I was yesterday experimenting with this, and I was using this as a bridge. So the first thing that you have to do is disable NJET. If you want to use this to create more than one access point, disable NJET. If you enable NJET, you won't get all the drop-down menus that you need if you want to do a wireless distribution system. If you're just using the two that came in the box, you can have NJET enabled and use their defaults, but I was having no luck with that. So I learned from the company, you want to disable NJET. It will be enabled like that, and then when you have it enabled, you're only going to get access point and WDS access point and WDS station, but no WDS bridge. So they recommend you disable that, and then you get, well, that would have to be saved. I mean, take my word for it, if I have it enabled, you're not going to get these drop-down menu options. So disable it, and then don't just use access point, use WDS access point. Now, I'd used a bridge, and by using a bridge, all I was doing was sending the information from this unit all the way to the other side of the property, and then I have to hardwire. It's as if you're running a cable when you use the bridge. So what the bridge really is saying that the distance between, if you do WDS bridge, the distance between this unit and the other unit on the other side of the property, it's as if it was connected by an invisible wire, and everything still has to be wired. It doesn't give you Wi-Fi. You'd have to then connect this unit to another router. But if you want Wi-Fi, you don't use it as a bridge. You use it as a WDS or Wi-Fi distribution or wide distribution system access point. Now they said to pick 80 megahertz, and the channel they said to set to 60. So hold on while we get to the channel there. I'm using channel 60, 300 gigahertz. You have to make sure that both units are set up on the same channel or it will not work. So just make sure that you have that set up. And then you have to put in the MAC address of the other unit. And that MAC address is found here on the unit, right there, the 5 gigahertz MAC. And I wrote down the MAC address in both units. So this unit is the F5, but I want to connect it to the other unit. So you have to enable this, and then go to your notes. Here's my MAC address there for the secondary, and there's my primary. So I put all that stuff down, and also I upgraded the firmware version so that's the latest, 3.7. But that's another tutorial. So it looks like this is what I need to put in here. I'm telling it to connect to that MAC address. So I'm telling it to connect to 88 DC. And the reason it's popping up for me is because I've done it before. 85, 70 in my case, and then F5. I think that's, let's check again and make sure. Okay, that's the primary. So that isn't the right one. The secondary is F8. So I have to tell it to be F8. All right. So that's enabled now. And this is my primary. I changed the name. I just added primary. That's a good thing for you to do, is go in there and make sure that you identify in here which are the primary and which are the secondary. So once again, I've changed the name to ENH500 primary. I disabled NJET. I went to WDS access point, 80 megahertz. I used my channel configuration and got it to be channel 60. And then if you want transmit power, I had mine on auto, but you can choose different transmit powers. I'm going to stick with auto for right now. I may mess with that later. Okay. And my MAC address is in there. And then for the security, I'm going to hit edit. And it defaults to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but I'm going to put in a different passphrase. Right, when you've done that, you hit save down at the bottom here, and then it'll ask you to apply those changes. So you click there, and you got to wait for those changes to be applied. And then you'll start to see this screen here where it says applying changes, and wait for that. It takes a few minutes to apply the changes, so I'm going to go hit pause for now. Expect to wait for maybe 3 to 5 minutes for all the changes to be applied. Once the changes have been applied, it'll come back to this screen here, and you want to scroll down and it'll say collecting data. And the data is collected. It should tell you now what it's called, the operation mode, now WDS access point. They're at 80 megahertz. It'll tell you the channel that you're on, channel 60. It's good. The distance, 1 kilometer. And then it tells you about the 5 gigahertz, which is how it transmits. All right, so that's supposed to get you started. Now that you've done that, you can now plug your primary, instead of into the back of your computer, plug it into your router. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm just going to plug this into the router. And that cable that I plugged in the router is going into the back of the injector where it says LAN. That's what's coming out of the router. And then from the router, the PoE there, power over Ethernet, is what is going into the box here. And they have a little rubber thing that I'll put on here later to seal this from the elements once I get this mounted on a pole outside. But for now, so now you see that I have Engenius 8570F51 is now being broadcast by this unit. So I have that internet and I can connect to it and just make sure that everything's working here. So we do a speed test, and of course since we're sitting right next to it, it's going to be really high because we're right next to it. All right. And you can see that when we look at our IP for the actual unit, it has an access point that is Engenius 8705_1. So there's that. Note when we come out here to the other side of the property, we note that the access point that we had set up earlier was the Engenius 8570F5-1, and that's what we were connected to, and that seems to be working. And the thing about that is that now it's very weak because we're far away on the property, but notice that the name that is given is the MAC address. So if you look at the MAC address of that primary unit, you see that it was 8570F5. And then of course the 88DC96 part is not used. So here you'll recognize that the Engenius 8570F5_1 is referring to that primary unit. Then the other one, 8570F8_12, is this unit here. The secondary, you can see that the MAC address is 8570F8. And then the 12, the only thing I can reckon with that is that it's the secondary one, and maybe it's because the IP address, it's probably because it's the secondary, because yeah, it must be that. So, but it's not, that one's not connecting for some reason, and I have to figure that out. But let me show you what the unit says. So I've labeled this one secondary because it looks identical to the first, but on the back you can see here that it had a default IP address of 192.168.1.2, and then it has its MAC address here, which is the F8 one, right? So there it is there. Okay. Then there's another Ethernet MAC which has an F6 on it. So I'm not really sure how that works out yet, but that was the default IP address for this one. That was the secondary as it came out of the box. It had the 0.2 on it. And so I'm trying to put it in the line of sight with it, and I'm not getting any link. And I was getting a link before when I had the primary set to bridge and this set to access point. So maybe I'm doing something wrong here, but I'm going to check it out in a second. So I'm just going to put that up there for now. It's not a complete line of sight, but it was working. And once again, with the injector, I have the PoE. I have the PoE going up to the unit, and then I have the LAN. And when I want to configure it, I take the LAN and I put it in the back of my laptop. Now that that's in the back of my laptop, it is actually, now that they've been configured, you will not be able to get away with using the IP address that is on the back of the unit. So that's something I learned, again, the hard way, because if I, oh, well, not necessarily true. It does work for now. All right, so let's see. Let's go in there and see what's happening in here. So here's my secondary, and when I go to wireless, let's see what happens. It's taking its sweet time. There it is. So I had this set as a WDS access point. The channel configuration was set to channel 60, which is fine. That's good. And the MAC address is set to the F5, which is that one. Yeah, it is enabled, and let's make this the same password. And I guess we have to hope that it works, unless you can't have two access points. I thought you could have as many access points as you want and they all talk to one another. So let's see what happens here. All right, well, we got it working, and there it is right there. So the Engenius 8570F8, which is the one here near the RV. Dash 1 is connected and secured. The other one, the 051, also is giving a pretty strong signal. And then there's the F7, which is the 5 gigahertz band. This is the 2.4 gigahertz band. This is the 5 gigahertz band, and we can't connect to that. I don't know how you connect to a 5 gigahertz, but this is how they talk to each other. And then the OF4 is the 5 gigahertz band for the one that's in the garage, I believe. So, but we're getting a good strong signal, and that's good. And let me show you what the system looks like, and let's make sure that everything is working out. So this is Wi-Fi, and it's going all the way across the room. Now if I go outside the RV, then okay, so I've put the ENH500 here by the biogas stove and the biodigester. So there's the biodigester and the biogas stove. And under this umbrella, just to give it some extra protection from the rain, give it a place close to the house. And because they have 120 degrees, I've angled it so that it's covering the RV, but also with that 120 degrees pointing toward the garage where the other one is. Now I'm using a 50 foot, I should replace it with a 25 foot cable that goes into the power over Ethernet. So I don't need to provide any other power for this. That's a nice thing about the Engenius. So I have that, and it's a bit long, but I have that 50 foot going into the shed where it goes into the box. And it's going into the Engenius box, and it goes into the part that says POE. These frogs are great. So it's hard to get it focused, but that says POE. And then there's LAN. The LAN isn't going anywhere right now. But this is if I wanted to plug in here. I'll come back and do that just to show you what the insides look like. So it is getting power from the shed, and the unit is power over Ethernet through the Ethernet cable there, so I don't have to run any lines. I suppose I could run a 100-foot, go all the way to the RV, but it seems good there. I want to have some broadcast range. It's nice and strong in there. We're able to even do Chromecast, so that is working. And because of that 120 degrees, the other part, excuse my finger, the other part, so imagine we're following the straight beam, and it's going across the property this far. We used to have a broadcaster up there on the pole that was hardwired, and the hardwiring cut out after a while. And then we had a line buried recently that ran all the way to the RV from there, and it was working until last week, and then it stopped. So we don't understand what's going on with our hardwired Ethernet cables, the really good shielded ones that you go to all that expense to bury, because we've had two fail on us. So now we're hoping wireless will help with that. And the wireless is really supposed to cover the whole property, so that when school kids come and they look at the biodigesters and they look at the windmill and the solar panels and they look at the greenhouse and the moringa trees and the chia trees and the wildlife and the composting toilets and the agroforestry area and aquaponics and hydroponics, that they can use tablets for reading all of the Zapper codes and doing augmented reality. So that's the project that we're doing. And so this one here is the one we were showing you earlier. TR thankfully put up a wood block up there and a piece of PVC pipe separated with some spacers, and then I ran a 25-foot Ethernet cable up inside, and I've angled it so that it's got that 120 degree coverage and is beaming all the way back out there to the RV, like you saw. And you saw the setup in there, so I'm just going to go and look at the setup on the other side. But the downshot, upshot is that we're using two WDS access points. So this was set as an access point to channel 60, like we showed earlier in the video, and the other one was set identically. And then we put the MAC address for this one in there, and then put the MAC address from the one over by the shed into the primary one. So you put the MAC address from the primary into the secondary unit, and you put the MAC address from the secondary into the primary unit, and they talk to one another. So they're definitely working. And this is going to be really exciting when we get a couple others of them over there by the greenhouse and the goats and the cows and the aquaponics. Maybe with two other units we might be able to cover the entire property so that students can come, and if they want to learn about bees, they come over to the beehive with their tablets, and we'll have a sign with the Zapper code, and they can watch the augmented reality video right there and go on self-guided tours. That's the idea for this at our school here. So let's take a look at what's going on in these settings for the secondary unit to make sure, show you that they're exactly the same as the primary unit. So hold on a sec while I hook up the LAN cable here into my computer. Okay, so coming out of the LAN here, going into the back of the computer, this is the PoE going to the other unit. And here I'm editing a video in Camtasia on this exact subject, so let me minimize that. And let's see here. So if we go to, first thing you have to remember whenever you're getting ready to do this is that you want to go to Network and Internet Settings, and you want to go to the Ethernet public network, and you want to change connection properties. Is that how we do it? No, it's not how you do it. You go to, how does this work? You go here, you go and you click on this, and then change adapter options. That's what it is. Sorry, this is not coming in clear at all. Change adapter options. So you change the adapter options and go to the Ethernet, double click on that, go to properties and go to Internet Protocol version 4 TCP/IP v4, double click on that and then use a static address of 192.168.1.2. I'm sorry, no, my bad. Go to 15. That's what you have to do. Anywhere between 10 and 20, and let it put in the submask and say OK, and that should get you ready to talk to the Ethernet by going to open a browser and then typing in 192.168.1.2, and if that doesn't work, then we'll use another one. Let's see. Nothing happening so far. Nothing happening so far. So that may not be the one. There's another one that you have to find, and I put it, I don't know where I put that program. Yeah, that doesn't work. So I do believe that there's a program that does the Advanced IP Scanner. So you should have the Advanced IP Scanner and then scan, and you'll find that there's now a fixed address for it that's been assigned that is going to be different. Let's see which one this is. So wait for that to populate. You can download Advanced IP Scanner from the web. So there's the primary unit, which is still at 192.168.1.1, but the other one, wait up for it, the other one is right there, I guess, secondary home. So it has a new IP address, you see, not the one that was listed on it. And that is 192.168.254.112. Sanow Networks, the ENH500 secondary home. So we've got to get that one or memorize that. It doesn't let me copy that address, does it? Well, we can try copy all, copy IP. We'll try that. And now we'll paste that in. Okay. And there, now it shows up. Okay. So there we go. So now you can see what it's set at. This is the ENH500 secondary, the second unit that's underneath the umbrella, and it's got its own MAC addresses that it's putting out. And if I scroll down, you see that it is set as a WDS access point. They both are. They're identical. So the secondary and the primary, we set them both in operation mode at WDS access point. The channel bandwidth was set identically to 80 megahertz, and the channel was set to 5.3 gigahertz channel 60. And I set it also with a WPA2 personal password. And when you look at the MAC addresses, remember that when you go to wireless and you look at it, give it a second. It says it's waiting. Okay. So this is the screen that you would use under wireless to fix these things, and there's so few videos that show this current version of software that it was driving me nuts. But you've got to disable NJET if you want to have WDS going on. That's Wi-Fi distribution network. So you first disable the NJET, and then you set the access point. Do not pick green, no matter how environmental you are. So I'm using WDS access point, not a bridge like I was originally, not a WDS station, not a client bridge, not an access point. And if you haven't disabled the NJET, you're not going to see all this anyway. So if you're going, hey, I don't see any of these other options, all I see is access point and client bridge, it's because you have NJET enabled. So you got to disable that in order to see these options. And I'm using access point. And then 80 megahertz, I chose it. Usually defaults to 40. Somebody told me I should use 80, and it's working, so I'm not going to mess with that. You can do the channel configuration from here, and that'll open up a new tab. And then you see that I picked channel 60 for both of them. I don't have to save it because it's already saved in there. I'm not going to change anything. And didn't change the transmit power. I left it at auto. Some people say to change it to 11 dBm. So the different decibel levels, I don't know, it's working on auto, so I'm leaving it on auto. I haven't messed with that. I didn't change the client limits, I didn't change the bit rate, I didn't change the AP detection, I didn't change the distance. I left it at 1 kilometer, 0.6 miles. Seemed to work for me. It's the MAC address down here. That's the MAC address that was on the other unit. On the back of the other unit, it showed the MAC address, and that's it there, 88DC968570F5, which I had to enable. If you don't enable it, then you're not going to get this. So you have to click on Enable for that. All right, so you just enable that, and that comes up. And I put in, put in everything else. All right, so that's it right there. And then you put in your passwords and stuff. All right. So I'm not going to change anything. Those are the settings, and that's how it works. And I hope this helps you to understand how to make this whole kit and caboodle work. And if you want to see that it's working, you click on Connections, and you should see that there's an uplink. Link status is up. And then it tells you the connection, tells you that we had this MAC address for this amount of time, and that's what was accessing, the 08 was accessing things. Alright, so that's about it. I can now leave this and disconnect from here and connect to the Wi-Fi. As I disconnect this from here, and there's the Wi-Fi, and everything should be working because the Wi-Fi is on. And if I go to YouTube, which is the litmus test for these things, then yeah, it's playing.
Saving the planet.
Alright.
Solar-powered golf carts take the guilt out of America's favorite alpha male sport.
So there we have it. And that's it. So we've got a good strong signal coming from all the way over in the garage. And that signal is bouncing off of this. and beaming out 120 degrees. So it's reaching the RV. And we're quite pleased. So 2 WDS access points. And I'm going to add a third and a fourth and program them exactly the same way. Should be pretty easy from here on in. Thanks for watching.